What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist at Stochastic here on the Odd Shopper channel, coming to you with another edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hit that like button, subscribe button, and notification bell as we get going. Goes a long way for me on this video. Goes a long way for you. You become a prize whenever great content is going live here at the Odd Shopper channel. I am in deep, great, excruciating pain right now. The Minnesota Vikings are the worst thing that have probably ever happened to anything that I've cared about ever. Death, destruction, pain, suffering. Need I go on? Everything is awful. I love 4-yard out routes to end football games when you need 8 yards to move the sticks. What a great idea. Kirk Cousins, thanks. He actually played great too. That's the sad part. Our defense is just... You know what? This is an NBA show. We're going to talk NBA things. How does that sound? Hey, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's going to be a fun Monday. We've got early morning basketball. We've got afternoon basketball. We've got evening basketball. A long amount of time to be able to find a lot of bets. And I think I've found a couple of them, curated my card to help you guys out best as I can, try to give you as much information as possible. Lots of things waiting in the wings, but usually that means opportunity. Just like you have an opportunity to sign up at DraftKings right now, bet $5, get yourself $200. If you have a problem, dial 1-800-GAMBLER, take advantage of that. But otherwise, DraftKings, you're going to want to sign up there. We'll talk about that coming up a little bit later in the program, how you can take advantage of it and what you should be betting as well. But 9 games front to back. Let's get to the picks. We kick off the holiday, which I'm going to focus on holiday. Celebrate. It's like in The Wedding Singer when he's crying. I don't know. Let's just talk basketball. Celtics, Hornets. Similar to being a Vikings fan, being a Hornets fan is just pain. Pure, unfiltered, can't even believe it's real pain. They're not good. They've basically never been good. They have the best basketball players ever played basketball as their owner, and he's terrible at picking basketball teams and putting them together. They're 11-33 for the second worst record in basketball right now. They play 0 defense, 0 offense. And yeah, they've played a super tough schedule thus far, 4th toughest adjusted strength of schedule to be exact. But a date with Boston without Kelly Oubre and Gordon Hayward. Not good. Not going to bring the warm fuzzies. Still, stud Celtic wing. Jaylen Brown has been ruled out already with a groin injury, and that at least makes this game somewhat compelling to me. Now, do I want to go out of my way here to bet Charlotte inside of the 10 points? Probably not. I think Boston talked about it repeatedly, best team in basketball so far this season, but I will say I think that's where I'd be leaning. No, I'm talking about the total, which currently sits at 233.5. This is 233.5. That's too many. In my model, Brown brings tons of offensive firepower, 90th percentile offensive player, and takes away a solid defensive wing there who has routinely been 70th to 80th percentile in that department too. In fact, this game already on the card, that under already on the card, as I'm worried this dips a few points down before close, and I do not want that, fam. I want something good to happen to me. So let's bet what I assume to be the closing line here around 230. We'll take the under of 233.5 right the F now. That's it. Next up is just more brutality, more sadness for a fan base. Kind of like to see it. The Pacers going into Milwaukee to face the Bucks. And as if things weren't bad enough for the Pacers losing Tyrese Halliburton, shout out Iowa State for the near future, Miles Turner is questionable. And the Bucks get Giannis Antetokounmpo back, who I've heard is pretty good at basketball. Confirmed pretty good at basketball. I mean, that's why there's a gnarly 10.5 and 11-point spread at every book around the industry. And I think you know by now, those kind of things make me uncomfortable, especially when trying to bet it from a prop perspective with studs. I mean, I've been routinely betting Giannis points plus rebounds plus assists, absent Chris Middleton for about the past month. But this game has so many runouts, so many iterations about what it can be. And that's what's difficult for me. When you try to do 1,000 simulations of a basketball game, you get a lot of outliers. You get a lot of spots where this team wins by 30, and that is going to drastically affect the Bucks. Now, Giannis can still smash. The Bucks can smash, and Giannis is probably a lot of the reason why they do. But on the other hand, a blowout could lead to 3 quarters and a lack of use of his services. And the minutes could be somewhat limited as a result. Although a team with title aspirations like Milwaukee, again, first game back from injury and in a week, they're not rolling out Giannis unless he's near 100%. So those fears, less severe for me. Still, I'll see where some of his props land, as if he's north of 50 PRA, I might actually be shorting him for once due to the many issues I just laid out. But as for now, I'm firmly on the side of laying the 10.5 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. I mean, if Miles Turner doesn't play, this is just a nightmare, an absolute nightmare for Indiana to keep it close. but I'm not in love with it. And this is where you don't need to try to force a bet in any way, shape, or form. So I'm just going to call it a lean. Milwaukee minus 10.5. If nothing else shows up in the morning, maybe I add it to the card, but as of right now, not going to make it. Another difficult spot for me to grasp what to do here. Pelicans visiting the Cavs in Cleveland. Cleveland, this one's for you. No, it's not. The Pels are 6.5-point dogs. Completely makes sense. Looks efficient. They're still without Zion, still without Brandon Ingram, and it'll still be the CJ McCollum show for however manyth game in a row now. And Cleveland is back to full strength, and I do mean full strength, as they just dusted off Ricky Rubio off the bench and off the shelf, basically. Wild stuff seeing him back in action, former Timberwolves legend, but yet another dude who can bring utility to this unit, this bench unit that is, with Karis LeVert, Kevin Love. Man, this Cleveland team is quickly becoming a problem in the East, and I don't think people realize what another piece at the deadline could do to their title hopes. In fact, let's talk through this for a second. And I know I don't get into futures very often here, but Cleveland is currently plus 2,000 to win the NBA title. Those are longer odds on DraftKings than 8 other teams right now. The Celtics, Nets, Bucks, and Sixers in the East, and the Warriors, Nuggets, Grizzlies, and Clippers in the West. Are all 8 of those teams really better than Cleveland right now? I mean, they are third. Cleveland is third in adjusted net rating on dunksandthrees.com, a way of getting a general idea for how good a team is. They're second in defensive rating, which should come as zero surprise if you've seen Jared Allen and Evan Mobley Jr. on a floor together. Just something for us all to mull over together here. As I think from a value perspective, plus 2,000, 20 to 1, they might be the best current bet at current odds on the board, and it's not remotely close. As for Monday, however, I have very little interest in this one. Jonas Valanciunas should be getting more minutes for these Pelicans against this huge front court. Again, Mobley, Allen. So maybe a play on his props due to more solidified minutes. Still feels thin to me. Whatever, this is a game to just revisit in the morning, as there's not a lot that stands out to me looking at the board as of now. So let's call it a lean on the Cavs side. Yeah, a lean, laying the 6.5 and be done with it. Don't think I'll be pulling the trigger on anything here besides props, but if I do, Cavs would be the play, minus 6.5. Look at that cheery guy. Man, I remember days of joy and happiness. It was a long time ago, like Saturday, before the Vikings played football, before the Vikings decided to have zero defense on a football field, before we turned Danny Dimes into a New York Giants legend. But this is what you're going to do. Sign up at DraftKings. Make me feel better. DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet $5. Get $200 in bonus bets. Place $5 on a wager in any market. Whatever you want. Take advantage of it. And don't forget, if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. But see that scan me thing? That's kind of cool. Fire that up. That's all. I miss smiling. Back to the picks. The Knicks on a back-to-back host the Raptors in the Garden. Should be super entertaining, so long as Fred VanVleet, who is questionable, plays for the Raptors. If he does, we'll get the rare full-strength basketball game on January 16th. That is a rarity in the NBA. Imagine that. That'd be fun. But how about Jalen Brunson, man? I know I harp on him for his lack of defense, but this is due to him just being a print fest in the props market. That I love him. I'm starting to love this guy. Now, he's gone over this number that's lingered around 24.5, 25 in the past 6 consecutive games. 6 straight, he's gone over it. He's played Giga, a lot of minutes, absolute boat ton of minutes in all of them. Do we just keep riding the wave now that it's up to 25.5 where it's at for Monday? You have RJ Barrett back in the fray? Why, yes, I do think we do. For one, I think VanVleet missing would lead to more Malachi Flynn minutes, and that is a massive upgrade for Jalen Brunson. Not that I look at individual defense, but you look at Malachi Flynn defensively. One of the worst that there is that would be inserted into over 20 minutes of duty immediately with no FEV. And 2, even if Fred VanVleet does play, Toronto on the whole is actually bottom half of the league in adjusted defensive rating. Not something I expected coming into this year. Mr. Thibodeau is not in the business of off days. He's not in the business of monitoring minutes, even on a back-to-back here or any of that jazz. So it's crazy. It's wild. But I am locking in Brunson's points prop over. I know Julius Randle went completely berserk, but Jalen Brunson came along for the ride. And this Knicks team, they're starting to show out a little bit. I still don't think they have enough in the current iteration. They're a piece or two away from making things interesting. I don't even know how they would go by accumulating that piece at the deadline. Lots of things would have to happen. I doubt this Knicks team is one in its current iteration that you would just be buying high on, but lots of opportunities here with Jalen Brunson, both in the prop market and on prize picks too. Fire it up over there. You avoid the minus 120 juice. You avoid a lot of that stuff. And we're just looking for winners over there. I think it's a nice piece to throw in there too. I want to give you guys a couple of those. I think you can sign up for that in the video description box below as well. But 25.5, the over, lock it in for Brunson on Monday. Oh, hello, YouTube comment section. How are you this fine day? Because on Friday, you were not in a good mood. I could not believe how many of you wanted to yell at me, tell me how dumb I was, locking in the Warriors against the Spurs. Boo, Eric. The Warriors are terrible on the road. Boo, Eric. They just lost to the Suns. Boo, Eric. Steph Curry just got back. But yeah, and then they got blasted in Chicago today. We'll talk about that too. But that was a big bet by me on Friday. Basically a done deal in 1.5 quarters of play. They won by 29. You didn't even have Clay and Steph out there for the last quarter and a half of that one. Still, they fell flat on Sunday, as I just alluded to. Now I'm really, really worried. They could rest a ton of folks out of the blue for Monday's tilt against the Wizards, and I won't be able to benefit from it. But when this line comes, I can tell you one thing. Looking on the Wizards side, and hey, Bradley Beal could even return for the Wiz. He hasn't appeared since January 3rd with his lingering hamstring issue. Hadn't played for a week before that return. Played all of like 13 minutes before re-injuring himself. His return would be extremely interesting in the betting this number when it comes out. But until we see a line, which might be a second because we know Steve Kerr. It's not like the books don't know Steve Kerr is a dick when it comes to releasing injury reports. They're very, very aware of his tendencies to be, some would call it playing close to the chest. Me, I just call it being an irreverent, ridiculous human being. I don't know. I'm still upset. I take that back, Steve Kerr. You're a lovely person, I think. Just release your injury report. Or don't, and then we get lucky because we'll be able to get some value with it. So I'm going to assume the Wizards are the underdogs whenever this line comes out, and I think I'll be looking at the money line. I will be leaning the money line, and if I do anything here, it'll probably be the Washington money line because you just never know. Steph Curry sits, Klay Thompson sits, Andrew Wiggins sits, somebody sits. Life looks pretty good backing Washington. Oh, cool. Two teams I bet far too frequently and generally hate myself for it afterwards in the morning. Haha, seems like my mood right now. I'm dead inside. It's the Heat versus the Hawks. I don't have a whole heck of a lot here from this one other than one particular play, but let's just break down both of these teams coming back, and you're starting to see a healthier, stronger iteration of this Miami team. You have the key contributors being there routinely now: Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, Victor Oladipo, Tyler Hero, of course, playing massive minutes, Max Strus. Kyle Lowry continues to be out. We'll be still waiting on Caleb Martin. He's the only questionable piece on their side of the ball. Udonis Haslem doesn't matter. I don't even count him. So we'll just be waiting for that injury report for him. We'll talk about how that might matter a little bit. But looking at the Atlanta side, you've got a probable Trae Young. He's playing alongside DeJounte Murray. And now we've got an upgraded Clint Capella to questionable. That kind of muddies the waters for Okongwu, who went completely berserk against the Pacers the other night. John Collins as well, probably not playing as much a small ball 5. Looking at a pretty fascinating spot from the Atlanta side to maybe short a couple props, especially from a rebounding perspective if Clint Capella is indeed going to return and those numbers get released. But I'm honing in on Jimmy Butler. I think this is really the only play that stands out, and I have a very meager amount of interest here at this number. But look at this. He has a 20.5 points prop. Does that just seem low to you, or is that just me? Because I feel as though Jimmy Butler should never have a 20.5 points prop. I will say it's probably justified based on what we've seen just from a volume perspective the last couple of games. Just 13 and 14 shot attempts against Milwaukee on that back-to-back. But we got to keep in mind that's Milwaukee. The game got wonky towards the end of the iteration on Saturday. You had the other one where he just played 33 minutes, been pretty limited in terms of minutes and everything else. And now you're getting kind of an adjusted line for a guy who's averaging right around 22 points per game. So at 20.5, I get it. Tyler Hero back, playing tons of minutes himself. Bam Adebayo, just a healthier basketball team. But if this game is competitive, and why wouldn't it be with a 1.5 point spread? I'm looking at Jimmy Butler at 20.5 as being a like. Yeah, lots of words, lots of fancification there in order to get you to a pretty clear-cut play. I have a small play on it now. Might increase it a little bit here, but Jimmy Butler over 20.5 looks good to me. Oh, good God. It's the Jazz facing my Timberwolves. How much sadness can one Minnesota sports fan take? It's not bad enough. The Vikings just got waxed, and I've had to do this show. Basically a transfixed, depressed state. Now we could be down Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert, who are both questionable, to face Utah. Cool. Cool. I'm fine. Now, there's zero line. There won't be for some time. And why? Well, on the Utah side, Lauri Markkanen's questionable. Seems pretty important because King Lauri been pretty good at the old basketball. Kelly Olynyk going to be out for this one. It's a lot of news that we're going to be sitting around waiting, wishing, hoping you believed in superstitions. Then maybe you'd see the signs. Must I always be waiting on you? Must I always be playing your fool? I didn't write that. Jack Johnson wrote that. But until then, my friends, we're going to be sitting, waiting, wishing. Utah money line, my lean, because God forbid I back Minnesota sports tomorrow. I hate this show. I thought it was bad to be a Timberwolves fan. How about being a Suns fan right now with your basketball team under 500? No Chris Paul, no Devin Booker, no Cameron Johnson, no campaign in the membrane. Lots of problems going on with the Phoenix Suns here. And you face a Memphis team that, as I said before, Cleveland, they're sitting behind them in terms of odds to win the NBA championship right now. Memphis inside of plus 1,000. They've got some talent. I don't think anybody's questioning that. You do have John Morant. That's going to be a massive piece that we're paying attention to. I would like him to be in, but even if he's not, I talk about it a lot. Tyus Jones is one of the best backup point guards in basketball. It's a very clear cut. You put him in. Desmond Bane. We've all seen the numbers where Memphis wins a ton of basketball games, even in John Morant's absence. And I think he's a very special basketball player. I would much prefer him to be in there, but even if he's not, I don't think it's apocalyptic. But with John Morant in, I have this version of the Suns being one of the worst basketball teams in the NBA. We're talking 29th out of 30. That's second worst. I mean, look at their starting unit on a nightly basis right now. Dwayne Washington playing massive minutes. DeAndre Ayton, probably the one saving grace. Mikal Bridges as well. You do get two of your core starters back, but Dwayne Washington, Damian Lee, Josh Okogie playing tons of minutes in your backcourt. That's problematic when you face, regardless, John Morant or Tyus Jones, Desmond Bane. Oh, Gotham's reckoning is at end. I was born in the darkness. I'm backing the 10.5 for a look. Oh, my voice did a very spiked thing, and I don't even care. You know why? I don't care. I'm locking in 10.5 here. Again, 13-point spread is what I have this adjusted to with this version of the Phoenix Suns offense out there. That's 2.5 points. That's large enough to start locking it in, and I'm not the best in terms of modeling double-digit point spreads. I think it's difficult, especially when I tend to lean betting more props than I do individual spreads, although that has not been true for the last 2 weeks. I tell you what, this is just getting gosh darn ridiculous how many times I've been backing spreads here. But minus 10.5 on the Memphis side, my favorite bet of the day if John Morant plays. So, throwing it out there, looking really good. Go Grizzlies. And good thing we're coming off a lock because we're going out with a whimper. The Rockets on the road facing the Lakers, who will be on a back-to-back here. They are about to tip off in, 12 minutes? That's cool. So they haven't even started playing their basketball game here on the front end. We'll see what happens here on the back end on who ends up resting. And again, it's a back-to-back. Nationally televised on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Does LeBron James sit? Does LeBron James sit in this spot on a back-to-back? Part of me wants to say no, that he doesn't. And these are just some things you have to routinely think about, especially when it's the most important player on the floor from either team, that being LeBron James. Don't think that that's some revelatory fact to any of you, but it's something that I definitely want to be paying close attention to because I think Houston might be the spot to get some value. You have no Lonnie Walker, no Patrick Beverley, no Austin Reeves, no Anthony Davis, and possibly some other starters that just are sitting out there. Troy Brown got the start. They had Juan Toscano-Anderson, who has been starting a lot here of late. That starting lineup came out about 15 minutes ago. We'll see. Maybe some of these guys sit here on the back-to-back. They need a house of basketball team. Put them out on the floor against Houston. And Houston, they've got Kevin Porter Jr. He's been ruled out already for Sunday. He didn't play on this back-to-back. Or he will be playing more than likely on this back-to-back. Lots of weird things and iterations of this basketball game that could exist, but if you get Kevin Porter Jr. back, who didn't play Sunday, I would be firing up the Houston side of this one. Again, the Lakers, no LeBron, no possibility of LeBron. Just saying, it's there. Houston money line. I don't love it, but I absolutely would if you get LBJ safe. And that does it for a very cheerful edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. You know what to do. Head to that comment section below. Let me know if you hate football too. Let me know if you cannot stand your specific team and everything's miserable for you. Probably not if you're a Bills fan. You survived. You're moving on. Everything's good for you. Go Chiefs. Go Eagles. Must be nice. All right, that's it. Bet $5. Get yourself $200 over at DK. Call 1-800-GAMBLER if you have a gambling problem. But until Tuesday, when I'll be in a much better mood, I'm sure, I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NBA streets on Martin Luther King Jr. Day.